anybody's gonna mess up the order, it's gonna be. It happens, it happens. Let's pray again. Gracious God, open our hearts, open our minds. Help us to feel your presence, know you are with us as we delve into what it means to share in your grace. Amen. There is a seminary classmate of mine. His name was Harun Gatobu, and he came from Kenya. And he loved to tell stories with his wonderful sense of humor about what he experienced coming to the United States for the first time and experiencing a vastly different culture from his. He had many, many stories. In the process of telling us these stories, he taught us to be just a little bit more compassionate towards those who found themselves in a situation where they come into a new country and just are kind of lost for a while. This is my favorite story of his, and it illustrates grace so well. Gatobu tells about a time that he was visiting someone, and while he was at their house, they ordered pizza. Well, Gatobu had never seen this before. At the time, they didn't have pizza delivery in Kenya. I don't know about today. And it absolutely amazed him that you could sit in your house, place a call, and someone would bring pizza right to your door. And after you could, after they came, you would pay, and you could enjoy the pizza there in your house. Well, one day, while at home, he came across it. With his coupon and $5, you could get a pizza. This was in the 80s, remember? And he happened to have $5. Exactly. So he thought, I'll try it. I'll try it. He hadn't ordered a pizza before. He was a little nervous. So he called up the pizza place. The person at the other end answered, and Gatobu says, I'd like to order a pizza. The boy on the other end says, okay, sir, what size would you like? Gatobu says, well, what sizes do you have? The woman says, we have small, medium, and large. Okay, says Gatobu, I'll take a large. Okay, one large pizza, says the order taker. Then she asked, and what toppings would you like on your pizza? Well, what do you have? Says Gatobu. And then she proceeds to list all the toppings that there are. He didn't really know what most of them were, so he simply said, I'll take the first time. The boy said, will there be anything else? Gatobu says, no, that's all, just a one pizza. Okay, sir, said the woman. You take these orders, that will be $15. And hangs up. Now, this was not a lot of money today for a pizza, but this was in the 80s, I said. So Gatobu was sitting there rather in shock. He has a coupon with only $5. So what was he going to do? Then he remembers his friend Kim. He and Kim were really, really good friends. Kim was from another country in Africa. So he calls Kim and says, Kim, you want some pizza? Sure, says Kim. Okay, bring $2. And then Gatobu waits and he worries. Because you see, Gatobu explains, at the husbands are a laid back people. They don't worry too much about time. They don't rush anywhere. They are on their own time. They are on African time. So Toby waits in his living room, pacing a bit, I'm sure. And being the faithful man he is, I'm sure he's praying a lot too. And wondering who would come to his door first. His good friend Kim with the $10 or the pizza delivery person. After a long, long time of waiting and worrying, at last the doorbell rings. He gets up praying, please let it be Kim. Please let it be Kim. He opens the door and it's the pizza man, of course. The Tobu is now trying to explain, the situation of what was going on. The Kim was coming with the $10 and he didn't know about coupons, and the delivery person interrupts him. And he said, sir, I am so sorry that I wasn't able to deliver your pizza within the time promised. So your pizza is free. Remember when this was a thing? The Tobu couldn't believe his ears. Free? He is amazed and can't thank the man enough. What else could the Tobu do? He accepted the pizza. Then he sat down and enjoyed it. And I don't know if Kim ever made it. Not, he got in the free pizza. I love this story because, as I say, it illustrates so well grace. It illustrates grace so well. My friend Tobu didn't understand the ins and outs of how to order a pizza in the United States. He didn't understand that the coupon was for a certain size pizza, like for a small, probably no toppings at all. He totally messed up. So it was very understandable that Tobu did order pizza he didn't have the money for. And by all rights, he should not have gotten it, and yet he hadn't gotten it. He didn't do anything right whatsoever, but he got the pizza. He did not deserve the pizza, yet he got it free. A wonderful example of grace, unearned, undeserved, unconditional love of God. That's grace. So let's talk about grace. Grace is something that you can never get. You can only be given. Someone has to give it to you, bestow it upon you. There is no way that you can earn it or deserve it or bring it about any more than you deserve the taste of chocolate or watermelon or coconut cream pie or gravy or Baskin Robbins ice cream or $2. Good sleep is grace, and so are good dreams. Most tears are grace. The smell of rain is grace. Seeing the mountains to we Coloradoans is grace. Somebody loving you is grace. Loving somebody is grace. Ever try to love somebody? Hearing the words, I forgive you, is grace. Now, I maintain that the Bible, from first to last, is a book of grace. We often think that grace is mostly evident in the New Testament, but not in the Old Testament. Yes, There are pages in the Old Testament that seem to portray a different sort of God. But if we look carefully, we do find examples of grace. For instance, when Adam and Eve disobeyed, God does not carry out the threat of death. Instead, God sends them out of the Garden of Eden, but even then, God does not forsake them. He goes with them, never leaving them. That's grace. And when the great floods came, God gathers the remnant and allows them to begin again, making a new covenant with humankind. And then over and over and over again, when the Israelites fail God, they are given chance after chance after chance. These are examples of grace in the Old Testament. Grace is much more evident in the New Testament. In today's scripture that Dory read for us from Matthew 20, Jesus tells of a wealthy landowner who paid those who put in only a few hours exactly the same as those who worked all day long. That doesn't seem at all fair. But Jesus is making a point. God is not fair. God is merciful. And that is what Jesus tells us that God is all about. God is full of mercy. God is full of grace. We find the same message in Luke 15 in the story of the prodigal. Though the younger son went off and with his inheritance, wasted it, simple living, the father greeted the son before he even made it all the way home, saying, "Welcome, welcome home. You are forgiven. Kill a fatted calf. We're going to celebrate." Though the other brother was bitter, the father told him, "We have to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found." Again, that's grace. Since the inception of Methodism, grace has been an important belief of our denomination. John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, understood grace as God's grace as an active presence in our lives. Active, not passive. It is God working in you and me to give us a transformed life. Now, Wesley explained grace as having three parts. Remember, there's only one grace, to help us understand better, grace better, Wesley broke it down into three parts. First, there is prevenient grace, the grace of the porch. It prepares us to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ and to respond with faith. Justifying grace can be seen as the door of the house. At the moment of justification, we cross the threshold from unbelief to belief. Sanctifying grace is the grace of the interior of the house where we learn and grow and strive to be the best Christian that we can be. As I said, there's only one grace, just three ways in helping us to understand grace. Brother Bob is going to be leading a class on Methodism, and this Wednesday, we're talking about grace. Come and hear and learn more about grace in depth. These three things help us understand grace. However, it is not necessary for us to fully understand grace and how it works to receive grace. For instance, I know something about how a car works, but not even close to everything. But even though I don't totally understand it, that does not stop me from getting in the car and going someplace. That's the fact that it's going to get me where I want to go. So grace, the unearned, undeserved, unconditional love of God. How do we gain access to this grace? And then what do we do with it? When we get this wonderful gift? Well, all we need to do is accept it. That's all. Accept it. Like the toad did the pizza. Accept it. No matter who you are or what you might have done, Paul Tillich, noted preacher and theologian, preached a sermon titled, "You Are Accepted." His primary message to everyone is accept the fact that you are accepted. And it's not easy to accept that for many reasons. One reason may be that we may not feel worthy of receiving God's love. Or if not easy, we have a mindset that you know, get something. Be true, hating story. But it isn't true when we stand in the presence of God. Grace is ours. We just have to accept it. So we have one more thing to do as well. Once we have accepted that grace, we are to share that grace, that same grace, with others. We are not only the recipients of grace, we are also the givers of grace. Look for ways to show God's grace to others. Forgive others. We all make mistakes. Help those in need. Lend a helping hand, especially when people are struggling. Show kindness every day. Show love and acceptance to all people, no matter who those people are. In our welcoming statement, we want to show grace to everyone, no matter the language you speak, your heritage, race, financial situation, political affiliation, ideology, education, physical and mental abilities, sexual orientation, gender identity, to whomever you love. All the diversity that's found in our world. Share the grace with everyone. In Matthew 22, 36 to 40, Jesus was asked, which commandment is the first of all? Jesus answered, the first is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. And the second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. So accept the gracious love of God, and then share that same gracious love with everyone you meet. As Christians, that is our primary task. One more thing. If you see Jim, give him some peace.